Hello, welcome to Environmental Biology Online for the summer. It's a 12-week semester and we have 15 weeks of content to get in, so it might be a little bit more compressed than what you would have in a full semester, but I think it's going to be just fine. This is your first week of the semester and you have two main tasks. The first task is to read the first half of the Heinrich book, The Trees in My Forest. You'll read all the way to page 115. And while you're reading, just pay attention to anything that's interesting to you, things that you're learning, things that you connect with. And then what you're going to do is write about that in the discussion. So the discussion is a place where we're going to post our original reactions to the reading and then respond to each other with questions, comments, insights, things like that. So your first post is due by Saturday at 8 a.m. So you read the first half of the book and then post by Saturday at 8 a.m. And in that post, I just want you to talk about what you're getting out of the reading. Now, it's not a book report. You're not going to summarize everything that you read. I want you to tell me what you're learning, what you're getting out of it. So try to give me some depth, something interesting, something unique to you. So you'll post by Saturday at 8 a.m. and then after that, or anytime somebody's posted, you can start replying to each other. So your replies should somehow show that you're thinking about the material. It should stay focused on the book. It should make connections between what you read and what other people read or things that you've experienced. It should maybe speculate on what all this really means, why it matters. Okay, so your replies should really show some thinking. And your replies will be due by 6 p.m. on Tuesday next week. Okay, your second task is to find a home base and do your first home base assignment. So your home base is a place in nature that you're going to go to several times throughout the semester. This is a place that should be close to where you live because that means you'll be able to get there really, really easily. So although on top of Mount Mansfield might be like the best place to do some observations, it's really going to be difficult to get there probably every time this semester. So find some place really close to you. And then also make sure that it's a place that's totally wild. You don't want it to be somewhere that's mowed or where people are regularly visiting or maintaining or planting things. Just a place that's completely neglected by humans. You're also going to want to check to see if it's got poison ivy or stinging nettles or things like that that could make your time there really uncomfortable. So in the home base project link in our class, there's an article that identifies all of these species and helps you figure out what they look like so that you can avoid them. So you want to avoid that at your home base. And then this is a place you'll keep going back to, so try to make it someplace that you really enjoy. So once you've found your home base, you're going to do your first home base assignment there. And every time you go and do one of the assignments for this project, you want to be at your home base for at least an hour. And the point of that is so that you can see enough stuff to really get a sense of what's happening there. And each time I'm going to give you a special theme to be paying attention to. And this week, the theme is scales of space. So we're going to start looking at something very small and expand our thinking to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So we're looking at different scales of space. And the first scale is just the individual. So you're going to find an individual organism. So it might be some grass, it might be a dandelion, it might be a tree, it might be a spider. Just find one single organism and spend time looking at it and thinking about it really deeply. So remember what you read in the Heinrich book and the way he notices things in nature and the questions he asks and the way he observes. And I want you to try to practice that at your home base. Heinrich is kind of teaching us how to observe in nature. And the home base is your opportunity to practice observing in that way. So you'll find an individual and focus on that and try to learn as much as you can about it. And then you're going to expand your thinking to encompass all of the individuals that are the same species. So if you're looking at a white pine tree, you're going to look around and think about all the white pine trees that are there, how they're spread out around the landscape, how maybe they interact with each other. So you're going to think about the population for a while and ask some interesting questions, try to make some observations. After the population level, you're going to expand to the community level. And the community is all of the living individuals that live together in an area. So it's just the living things. You're going to look at the populations of all the different species. So it's going to be the wood thrush and the white pine tree and the spiders and the plants and the birds and the butterflies and all of the species that live there together and how they interact together. So you're going to ask some questions and make some observations about it. That's at the community level. And then the fourth level you're going to look at is the ecosystem level. And at that point, you're going to be looking at the community, all the living things, plus all of the non-living things like the soil and the sunlight and the air and the moisture and how those factors influence the species that live there. How does the amount of sunlight influence what lives there? How does the amount of moisture influence what lives there? And vice versa. So individual, population, community, ecosystem. So you might also look on Google Maps if you want to get an image of your home base and get a sense of where it fits in the landscape. So the landscape is another level of scales of space that you could look at if you wanted, but that's just extra. The other thing you could do is get really small and try to imagine what's happening inside of the organism. Think about the tissues or cells inside of that organism. Those are just optional, those last two. So what you'll do is you'll write up your observations in like a journal entry, sort of. It's about, you need to write at least 500 words. So I will count the number of words, and that number of words is important because it takes that many words to get the depth of thinking that I'm looking for. So 500 words, and then you'll have a heading at the very top of your entry that includes these 5 things. The date that you visited, the time you visited, the weather that you were experiencing while you were there, the location of your home base, which includes the city and the state, and the last thing you'll write is the topic of this home base, and this one is scales of space. So you'll post that in a discussion that's going to be posted in week 2 of our Moodle website. And so that's because in week 2 we're going to read everybody's entries and discuss them. Okay? So that's what you have to do this week. You want to read the Heinrich book and post your thinking about the book, and then find a home base and do your first home base entry on scales of space. So thank you so much for joining us this semester. I'm really looking forward to it, and please contact me if you have any questions.